Greetings once again from Eastern News 24. I see the bike Nkonye Chikweri Yazelo. Alright, today we'll be bringing to you the latest update on what is happening in the land of Ndibo and the whole entire Biafra land. Alright, in case this is your first time, don't forget to share, and once again, don't forget to subscribe. Alright, this news is according to the Biafran activist Wetala Bozi, as he quotes: Former Nigerian President Mohammed Buhari risks jail as Kenya court exposed illegal adoption of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Hear the news in details. Alright, a quick one. Umunem ayabapuni also ga wetero nya bob data jibakia webia. The kema kaya bi fesi apoto na Kenya after Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's court case na Kenya and the melinko owetero. So if about some of the secrets if mega say no, and according to the Biafran activist, Buhari may go to jail. That is it. Alright, over to you.
They said it never happened. They said it was legal. They tried to silence the truth. But now, a high court in Kenya has spoken. And what it revealed might shake the very foundations of power in Africa. Nnamdi Kanu abducted, detained, addition to Nigeria in the dead of night. For years, IPOB screamed injustice. Now, a court agrees, and the names involved will shock you. Pushpin, stay with us. This is not just a story of political power, it's a global reckoning. In June 2021, Nnamdi Kanu, leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOB, vanished. He had traveled to Kenya alone, quietly. But what happened next wasn't a lawful arrest. It was an international abduction. Kanu was seized by unidentified men, held incommunicado. No warrants, no charges, no access to a lawyer, not even contact with his family. He simply disappeared. And when he resurfaced, it was in Nigeria, blindfolded, handcuffed, and paraded before cameras like a trophy. The Nigerian government claimed he had been extradited. But behind the scenes, human rights groups were outraged. Legal experts called it a rendition, an illegal form of cross-border kidnapping. The Kenyan government stayed silent. The Nigerian government declared victory. But IPOB launched a global outcry. And they had a question. If Kanu's arrest was legal, why did it feel like a covert operation? Fast forward 3 years later, the answer has come. And it came from an unexpected place, a Kenyan courtroom. June 27, 2025. Nairobi High Court. Justice Isi Mwita steps into the courtroom. His ruling. A quiet thunderclap across Africa. The abduction and detention of Nnamdi Kanu was unlawful. The rendition to Nigeria, illegal. The process violated his fundamental human rights. Let that sink in. This wasn't just a technical error. It was a criminal breach involving two sovereign governments. The Kenyan court declared that Kanu's basic rights under Kenyan and international law were trampled. And it didn't stop there. The court awarded him 10 million Kenyan shillings, about 119 million naira, in compensatory damages. A symbolic but powerful declaration: what was done to Kanu was wrong. But that's not all. Justice Mwita pointed the finger, subtly, but unmistakably, at the administrations of former President Uhuru Kenyatta in Kenya and former President Muhammadu Buhari in Nigeria. Political giants, now implicated in a covert international crime. Studio microphone: this ruling is not just a vindication of Kanu, IPOB said, but a historic exposure of international injustice. And just like that, the narrative flipped. This ruling could open the floodgates. International lawsuits. Human rights sanctions. Global accountability. IPOB has vowed to pursue justice on the world stage, at the ICC, the UN, and anywhere those responsible can be named and held accountable. This is more than a win for one man. It's a strike against impunity. A warning to those who believe power gives them immunity. Direct hit, and it raises a chilling question. How many others have been silenced, abducted, disappeared, without the world knowing? And what happens next, when the courts finally listen? Loudspeaker, subscribe and stay with us as we follow the story. Let's rewind the clock. It's mid-2021. The world is distracted. COVID-19 still rages. The news cycle spins endlessly. But behind closed doors, something quiet and sinister unfolds. A plane lands in Kenya. Not military. Not flashy. But according to whistleblowers, intelligence agents were on board. They weren't there for a diplomatic mission. They were there for a man, a voice too powerful to ignore. Nnamdi Kanu. Sources allege that top security officials from Nigeria held secret meetings in Nairobi, no press, no official records. What were they negotiating? His capture. His extraction. A move outside the boundaries of law. Some say the operation was greenlit at the highest levels of both governments. Backhand index pointing right, not just intelligence cooperation, but executive coordination. And here's where it gets darker. No extradition hearing was held. No Kenyan court order was issued. No Interpol warrant was presented. Just like that, a man with British citizenship was disappeared. Studio microphone, this was not an arrest, said barrister Aloy Ejimeka, Kanu's lead counsel. This was a transnational crime, coordinated between two governments bent on silencing dissent. For years, both the Kenyan and Nigerian governments denied involvement. But emails, leaked memos, and intelligence reports painted a different picture. And now, a court has confirmed what many feared: it wasn't a conspiracy theory. It was real. The court's decision is out, and the dominoes are beginning to fall. But what does it mean for Nigeria? For Kenya? For international law? Let's start with the immediate consequences. Collusion 1. Global legal pressure. IPOB's legal teams in the UK, US, and Canada are preparing new suits, not just against governments, but against individuals. This could mean travel bans, arrest warrants, and for the first time, possible charges at the International Criminal Court. Collusion 2. Human rights groups mobilize. Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, and several African watchdogs are calling for full investigations into the rendition and possible reparations for other victims of unlawful state actions. Collusion 3. Diplomatic tension. Relations between Kenya and Nigeria have cooled. Behind the scenes, British diplomats, who are kept in the dark when a UK citizen was detained, are pressing for answers. And here's the twist. President Ruto's administration is now under scrutiny. Even though it wasn't in power during the operation, it must now clean up the mess left by Uhuru Kenyatta's government. Studio microphone, we inherited this situation, a Kenyan official was quoted saying, but the courts have spoken. We must uphold the rule of law. Meanwhile, in Nigeria, the federal government is silent. But the silence speaks volumes. In the court of public opinion, a fire is already spreading, especially in the southeast. Speaking head IPOB supporters are calling for full exoneration and immediate release of Nnamdi Kanu, who still remains in detention in Nigeria despite the judgment. And here's the real danger. If nothing changes, this ruling could ignite a storm of unrest. People have been silenced. But now, a court has given them a voice. And they are not letting go. The court exposed the surface. But underneath, there's a network of shadow actors, diplomats, agents, ministers, who turned this into an international scandal. Let's peel back the layers. Busting silhouette first, the political heads. Uhuru Kenyatta, then President of Kenya, was in office when the abduction occurred. Muhammadu Buhari, then President of Nigeria, immediately took credit for the capture. Coincidence? Or coordination? Man detective, but it wasn't just them. Intelligence sources name Kenya's Directorate of Criminal Investigations, DCI, and Nigeria's Department of State Services, DSS, as collaborators. They reportedly bypassed legal channels, operating in secrecy to ensure no paper trail. It was surgical, fast, illegal, and effective. But in trying to erase Kanu's voice, they left fingerprints everywhere. Open-file folder leaked documents suggest meetings between Nigerian operatives and Kenyan security officials in Nairobi weeks before the abduction. Surveillance, phone intercepts, and finally, a takedown in broad daylight. Studio microphone barrister Ejimeka later revealed that British authorities were deliberately not informed, even though Kanu is a UK citizen. So, who was protecting who? Did some foreign governments know and look away? And why was a man, wanted for leading a nonviolent separatist movement, treated like an international terrorist? Because when truth challenges power, power doesn't play fair. Now comes the question burning in every supporter's heart. Will this ruling lead to Nnamdi Kanu's release? The answer is complicated. Legally, Kanu's detention in Nigeria is now built on sand. His arrest, his rendition, his trial, all are tainted by the court's finding of illegality. According to human rights lawyers, any trial based on an illegal rendition is null and void. Studio microphone, you cannot commit a crime to prosecute a crime, one legal analyst said. But here's the catch. The Nigerian government isn't backing down. Kanu remains in DSS custody. His trial continues, in defiance of international norms. Why? Because freeing Kanu now would mean admitting the state was wrong, not just legally, but morally. And in the world of Nigerian politics, that's a dangerous precedent. But the pressure is mounting. The UN has asked for immediate review of his detention. The UK, embarrassed by the mishandling of a citizen's rights, is quietly pushing for a diplomatic resolution. And IPOB has vowed to escalate international campaigns. Street protest, social media storms, diaspora movements, court filings from Lagos to London. What started in Nairobi may end in The Hague. And the bigger question: if Kanu is released, who else will face the fallout? The court has spoken. The people have risen. Now the world is watching. And justice is just getting started. When a national court speaks, it's law. But when the world's highest court acts, it's history. The Kenyan High Court ruling wasn't just a domestic verdict. It opened a door to international accountability. And now, all eyes turn to The Hague. Composed the International Criminal Court, ICC. An institution built for moments just like this. Unlawful detentions. State-sponsored kidnappings. Human rights violations. IPOB's legal teams, armed with the Kenyan court judgment, have now submitted preliminary filings to the ICC. They are calling for investigations into crimes against humanity, prosecutions of individuals involved in Kanu's abduction and torture, official designation of state misconduct in both Kenya and Nigeria. And guess what? The ICC is listening. In previous years, the court dismissed IPOB petitions due to lack of evidence. But not anymore. Now, there's a court ruling. There's documented abuse. There's international outcry. Studio microphone, this isn't just about Kanu, says a human rights lawyer in The Hague. This is about setting a precedent that no African leader is above international law. If the ICC proceeds, it will be the first time post-colonial African governments face direct legal action for cross-border rendition. And for the Nigerian elite, that spells trouble. Because the next time they board a plane to Europe, they might not return. Justice moves slowly. But once it starts, it does not stop. To some, Nnamdi Kanu is a radical. To others, he's a visionary. But to millions across southeastern Nigeria and the diaspora, he is hope. Hope for self-determination. Hope for justice. Hope for a future beyond marginalization. Since 2015, IPOB, the indigenous people of Biafra, has grown from a scattered movement to a global force. Globe showing Europe-Africa chapters in London, Houston, Toronto, Johannesburg. Megaphone rallies held in front of the UN. Loudspeaker online broadcasts reaching millions daily. But behind the noise is a simple truth. Studio microphone, we just want to be heard. For years, the Nigerian government dismissed IPOB as a fringe group. They branded it terrorist. They banned its symbols. They arrested its leaders. But even from prison, Kanu's voice echoed. And now, after the Kenyan ruling, his voice is stronger than ever. Studio microphone, we've been vindicated, said IPOB spokesperson Emma Powerful. This is not just a legal victory. This is the beginning of true freedom. But the road ahead is steep. Nigeria still holds Kanu. The political class still fears his message. And the Southeast remains tense, a region suspended between peace and protest. Will this court ruling tip the balance? Or will it harden the state's resolve to silence IPOB once and for all? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain. The world is watching now. And the truth, once buried, is rising. If Nnamdi Kanu walks free, Nigeria may never be the same again. Not because of chaos, but because of consequences. Let's explore the possibilities, not through emotion, but through cold, calculated scenarios. 1. A peaceful breakthrough. In this version, Kanu's release becomes a symbol of reconciliation. Dialogue is opened. The government acknowledges injustices. Negotiations begin around restructuring, regional autonomy, and economic inclusion in the Southeast. Studio microphone, we were never enemies of Nigeria, IPOB leaders have said. We were enemies of silence. Kanu could become a bridge from division to dialogue, from agitation to transformation. But for this to happen, both sides must put ego aside. And history tells us that's rarely how it goes. Warning now, let's move to 2. The trigger effect. This is the nightmare scenario that haunts Abuja. Kanu walks free and is welcomed home like a hero. Crowds flood the streets. IPOB rallies explode in size. The call for a Biafran referendum returns louder than ever. this time with international attention and judicial backing. That could lead to wider civil unrest, mass arrests and brutal crackdowns. A new round of separatist energy. In this scenario, Kanu's release is not peace. It's pressure. And that pressure could break the fragile political balance of the country. 3. The silent deal. Here's where things get murky. What if Kanu is released quietly, but under conditions? A gag order, self-exile, an unspoken agreement to step away from IPOB leadership. Many activists fear this. A backroom deal that gives Kanu freedom, but sacrifices the struggle. But would Kanu accept that? This is the same man who chose prison over surrender. The same man who faced torture, isolation, and political attacks, yet never renounced IPOB. If freed, would he compromise? Or would he come back louder, stronger, and more strategic? No matter the path, one truth remains. Nnamdi Kanu's release would reshape Nigeria. The country's political elites fear it. The military prepares for it. And millions of people, from Onitsha to London, are praying for it. But one question now burns hotter than ever. If the courts say he was illegally taken, if human rights groups say he deserves justice, if his people still cry for freedom, why is Nnamdi Kanu still in prison? And what will happen the moment the prison doors open? This isn't just the story of a man, or a movement, or even a court ruling. This is a mirror held up to the face of Africa. Because what happened to Nnamdi Kanu could happen to anyone who speaks too loudly, questions too boldly, or refuses to bow. Studio microphone: the abduction was illegal. His rights were violated. The courts have ruled. These aren't just words. They are a crack in the wall of authoritarian power. And that crack is growing. From the streets of Nairobi to the courts of Abuja. From diaspora rallies in London to quiet whispers in African capitals. There's a shift. People are watching. Judiciaries are awakening. And leaders, even presidents, are learning that impunity has an expiration date. Stop sign the old model of silencing dissent through fear is dying. Loudspeaker: the new era demands accountability, transparency, rule of law. This
ndị be anyị ngwadalụ ole nenu dịka unu si wee na-esola n'iru akwụkwọ n'ihe nke anyị na-eme na Eastern News 24. Ka efi were ikwu gbasịta maka ya bụ ife ndị a niile nọ n'iru akwụkwọ n'ụbọchị uhuruchi nke taa. Ka efi wee ikwu gbasịta maka ya bụ ife drọpụrụ ife iche n'ụdị nke gị ngwa nke mesịa na ụmụnne m.